Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is Gameplan 2022. We are talking about hours to the polls. Remember, it's just 97 hours and about 50 minutes to the polls. Remember, you can be part of this conversation by texting us live on 22047. That is our SMS line at TV47KE. That is our Twitter handle. Mine is at Eric_Mnene. And in studio, I have Maina Karobia, who's the UDA Youth leader. I have to really mention that before we start the show. Yes. Karibu sana to the studio.
Thank you, Eric, for this invitation. I've just left from a meeting on Decide at Gameplan 2022.
So you must be a very busy man. Yes. Right now, hours to the polls. And virtually joining us is Barrack Muluka, who's a strategic communications advisor. And I understand that he is yet to join us, but as our technical team works on that, Maina Karobia, there's a lot that has been happening. The president and his deputy, throwing words at each other. Where do you think the rain started beating them? The two of them, they used to have this working relationship during their first term, wearing shirts and ties that match. But right now is the complete opposite of what we saw in 2013. 9 years later, things are very different. What really went wrong? Because a lot of Kenyans, the president has attempted to explain what really went wrong, but still a lot of Kenyans, I can see the conversations online, offline we're having these conversations. What really went wrong that now the two cannot see, they cannot be on the same boat?
Eric, you see, Kenyan politics are very dynamic. Each and every day we find things changing. Democracy says that people are free to do anything, but politically you must ask yourself, how right is it? Because the president and his deputy were elected under the same party. They are coming together, means that they had some ideological similarity.
Yes.
But because the president seemed to be having an interest of working differently in his second term, by now joining hands with the opposition leader, who is Raila Odinga, then it meant that the dynamics within the ruling party had to change. In advanced democracies, you are either a conservative or a liberal. You are either on the right or the left. How come that? But in Kenya's situation, you are finding that the rightists and the leftists are now coming together. And you have to ask yourself, what has changed philosophically or ideologically for them to come together? So this marriage of convenience between the opposition and the ruling party meant that there was some shift that was to take place politically. And that's why you find there was differences between the deputy president and the president, and of course their supporters, because the ruling party had a majority of 8.2 Kenyans voting for them in 2017. It was only right if we stuck to that, to the ideologies of that party. If there is to be any competition for the person to carry the flag of the Jubilee Party by then, or in 2022, let them present. They should have presented a candidate to compete with the deputy party leader at the delegates level. But we saw that change. The party controllers or the party owners of Jubilee seemed to have different ideas, and I think the dynamics or the developments that we are finding in 2022 have indicated that indeed Jubilee was not interested in fielding a presidential candidate in 2022, and that's where changes came.
Well, let me take you back. When you call the handshake a marriage of convenience between President Uhuru Kenyatta and the opposition leader Raila Odinga, yes. I think you also forget to remember that in 2013 we didn't have the Jubilee Party. We had the URP Party, yes, and the TNA Party. And if I remember quite well, the Wiper party leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, had also been tasked with what was known as the shuttle diplomacy, the trips that he made in Africa to ensure that he saves the president and his deputy from the jaws of ICC. So he was also in the equation. There was also Mudavadi, Musalia Mudavadi, the current ANC leader. He was also in the equation. In fact, the coming together of Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto really disappointed Musalia Mudavadi, who was also in the question. So this means that all that time, all these people were trying to craft what you've just called marriages of conveniences because, well then, the Jubilee Party was not there, so we cannot argue that indeed there was a party with any ideology. So it's what's happening right now.
Let me say this, Eric. In Kenyan politics, to a great extent, we are still ideologically founded. Because if you look at the Jubilee Party, let me take you back to 2013. The URP was identifying itself as a Republican party. TNA was identifying itself as a conservative party. A Republican and conservative party by political definition means that they have some rightist or right-wing ideologies, and that's why they could easily come together. On the other end, the Wiper Party is more of a social democratic movement, and that's why it was easy for them to identify with the ODM. So the reason as to why I would say that the coming together of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta is a marriage of convenience, politically speaking, is because you have here the Raila Odinga who wants to vie in 2022, even as much as he was denying that he is going to retire. We have a Raila Odinga who has presidential ambitions in 2022, and we have an outgoing president in his second term who wants to protect his commercial interest. Who then does he have to work with? With a person who they have a historical background together. And that's why you find it is very easy for Raila Odinga to work with Uhuru Kenyatta because they have a historical background based on their family ties back in independence times. So that's why you find they can easily work together because they have some similarities. They come from background, they have the ethnic backing.
Okay.
But you see, under the Hustler Nation movement that has been projected by William Ruto, is a tribeless movement. It is more of the socio-economic struggles that people have been undergoing for the longest time. And that's what, in this election, we are presenting to Kenyans. When you go to the ballot, and this is what we are telling Kenyans, next week when you go to the ballot, and I urge particularly the young people of our nation, when you go to the ballot, ask yourself, do your social status right now, do you really want to maintain the status quo that is being presented by the Azimio project? Do you want to want to continue with the economic struggles that are currently in place? If you want a new order of affairs in our country, vote Kenya Kwanza. If you want status quo, where things, the struggles, the high cost of living remains, then you know the side to side with. But for change, if you want economic and social change, Kenya Kwanza is presenting a plan and a manifesto that wants to change the lives of Kenyans.
There are a lot of things that were promised by the Jubilee leadership.
Yes.
Including, and that includes Deputy President William Ruto. He is the second in command in the country.
Yes.
I happen to have their manifesto, the hard copy manifesto,
yes,
that they came together, that had brought together Najib Balala, the tourism minister, the current Kitui governor, that is Charity Ngilu,
yes,
and the deputy president and his president.
Yes.
As I've told you, I happen to have a copy.
Yes.
Why didn't, if you're saying if Kenyans really want reforms, they should vote Kenya Kwanza, and yet some of the things that I see in that hard copy of the manifesto, in fact, a lot of things have not been achieved. I mean, what is going to change now once he gets to the House on the Hill?
You see, Eric.
I'm talking about the first term.
Yes.
Not the second term, where he might argue that yes, he was pushed out by the handshake. I'm talking about the first term.
If you look at the development projects of Jubilee, but let me not, I don't have to, I'm not the spokesman of Jubilee. By then I was just a voter.
Okay.
I was not involved in the affairs of Jubilee, but let me talk from this perspective as a normal Kenyan and a non-ordinary Kenyan. From a vantage point, Jubilee really worked in the first term, and that's why they had a 55-54 approval rating in 2017. If they didn't work during the first time, they wouldn't have been re-elected. But by virtue of them having delivered to a great extent, they had an approval rating of Kenyans of 54-55%. There was a great foundation that was set in the first term. the last mile electricity connectivity, the infrastructural development, the education sector, and lowering the cost of living.
Okay.
To a great extent, the foundation that was set in 2013, 2017, the Jubilee government delivered. The promises, you see, government is not really a perfect system. Government is a consultative and a broader system that is subject to various consultations, that is subject to various thoughts and models and approaches that are used by the bureaucrats. In short, government is a bureaucracy.
Okay. A
bureaucracy has so many human resource and softwares that are involved in delivering the government agenda. So, to a great extent, the first term of Jubilee government, they tried. They built the foundation. It was upon the second term now, and that's where the Big Four plan came in, to build on the foundation that was set in the first term. So, and that's why you find in the first term, it was more of dealing with the hardwares, the infrastructural development, the connectivity, the last mile connectivity, all those things are hardware. The second term now was to deal with the social welfare. The social welfare now is where you come with the manufacturing, the industries, the healthcare, the education, all those things. And that's why you find the Big Four agenda was not more of infrastructure development. The Big Four agenda was basically about how do Eric, am I making the cost, the living standards of Eric be of a 21st century human being. That was basically the Big Four agenda, if you look at it from a keen perspective. It was not about infrastructure development. But the coming in of Handshake now means that there's a shift of the whole agenda. And that's why the second time we have not talked about the Big Four. In fact, it was the Deputy President who was always trying to remind the President, why don't we revert back to the Big Four agenda? Why are we still talking about constitutional change under the BBI? So the coming in of the opposition leader, that is Raila Odinga, means that the government agenda, upon which they were elected in 2017, had to shift to accommodate his interests, whether politically or economically. Yes.
Well, I wanted to take a very, very short break so that we can find time to have Barrack Muluka join us. Barrack Muluka is a strategic communications advisor, and we are talking about hours to the polls. Remember, as I've just said, it is just 97 hours to the polls. It's a much anticipated polls. A lot of Kenyans are eager to see our next leaders, who their next leaders are going to be. A lot is at stake on this election. I want us to take a very short break, but remember, as I've told you, you can be part of this conversation. SMS us on 22047. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. Here's our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business. Farming. Tasty Wednesday. Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers, as we know agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to.
Welcome back to Gameplan 2022, and thank you for staying with us. Remember, you can text us on 22047 and at TV47KE. That is how you can be part of this conversation on Twitter, TV47KE. That is our handle. Mine is at Eric_Mnene. We're talking about hours to the polls, and in studio I have with me Maina Karobia, who's a UDA Youth leader, and of course we are waiting for Barrack Muluka to connect virtually. Barrack Muluka is a strategic communications advisor. Just before we went on a break, we were talking about parties and their ideologies. Really, Maina,
yes.
A lot of Kenyans, because your party leader has said that you should be held to account once you're past the 9th of August. You should be held to account for the things that you're promising Kenyans. That's a rhetoric that everyone is used to. What are some of the mechanisms that the United Democratic Alliance Party is planning to put in place to ensure that, yes, they are held to account, and yes, they are going to be public about what they do, no secrecy?
You see, Eric, first of all, I want to take you back to basics. Our plan in the manifesto that we presented to Kenyans at Kasarani Stadium was basically a grassroots consultative or grassroots-led manifesto. That means that we involved people in the developing of the plan and the manifesto that we presented to Kenyans, and it means that they are going to hold us accountable based on what we presented. The other thing is that we are going to have the manifesto or the plan, the Kenya Kwanza plan, ratified publicly. It is going to be publicized. In fact, contrary to what Fidel Castro said, that revolution will not be televised, we are televising our revolution. Everything that we have been doing is public, and we involve the public in everything that we do. What are the mechanisms that we have put in place? The public servants, in this case the leaders, right, from the MCAs, MPs up to the president level, that are going to be elected under the UDA in Kenya Kwanza coalition, are going to be the people representatives. They are going to be the spokespersons of the people. And they will be the champions of our plan and the development agenda that we are having for the people. In any case, the Hustler Fund that we have promised Kenyans is going to be taken up to the ward level. Who is the representative of the ward, of the people at the ward level? It is the MCA. So it means even the people themselves can actually demand from the UDA government or the Kenya Kwanza government in regards to the deliverables in comparison with the plan that we presented to them. So the mechanisms are there. We are going to use, the people can use their representatives under the various levels of government, both the county and the national government, to demand for what we have promised them. You see? And you see, one thing I've been saying is this. You see, William Ruto is the champion, he's a global champion of open governance system of leadership and governance. And you see, you cannot be a champion, and he was actually awarded this position by a Washington-based organization. That means that his approach in leadership and governance is more of people-led, people-centered. So, and you can see this particular leadership style and leadership approach through the way he approached the developing of the manifesto. So that means even in terms of delivering the Kenya Kwanza government agenda, will be people-based, will be people-consultative. The article on public participation is actually one of the articles that we want to enhance in terms of delivering the government agenda. Today, Eric, if you want to develop the budget, the county budget or even the national budget, there is barely minimal, there is actually minimal public participation. But under the Kenya Kwanza, we are promising people that the county government and also the national budget, the national government, they are going to be involving the public in terms of developing the government agendas and government vision that we'll be having for the people. Okay, so well, to that extent, everything will be people-centered.
Okay, and I understand. My producer tells me that we have connected with Barrack Muluka. Barrack, if you can hear me, good evening. Barrack Muluka, if you can hear me, good evening, sir. Kindly unmute your video. Hello, sir. Good evening. Can you hear me? My director asked me to ask you to unmute your audio. Your audio, we can't quite get you from wherever you are, Barrack. Hello, sir. Well, good evening, sir. Barrack, can you hear me? Well, as our technical team tries to sort that out, let me just engage Maina Karobia, who's a UDA, and I keep repeating this because I have to be very clear that you're a UDA youth leader. Yes. The pollsters have had only until yesterday to release their findings. The law prohibits them from releasing findings 5 days or less than 5 days to the polls. They've released their last findings from, let's say, late last year until yesterday. And some of the findings that they have released are quite confusing to Kenyans. They are worlds apart. Some show Kenya Kwanza is leading, others showing that Azimio is leading. Is there anything, from where you see it, is there anything to write home about the opinion pollsters?
Indeed, as you have described them, they are quite confusing. I urge Kenyans to know that the true opinion polls will be on 9th of August. Eric, we have had the opinion polls in this country since time immemorial, since 1982 through to 2007, serving as more of propaganda machines than the predictive machines. Why do I say so? During the various by-elections that we have seen in recent times, they were placing the ODM candidates to be getting double digits in terms of the votes. But when indeed the by-elections are held, the ODM candidates and rather Azimio-affiliated parties lose those by-elections. And that is what you are going to find next week on Tuesday. They have been projecting Raila Odinga to be leading in these by-elections. The truth of the matter is that, to me, and to a greater extent of a majority of Kenyans, is that Raila Odinga is now almost being crowned as the king of opinion polls in this country. In 2007, we had the Ipsos Synovate predicting Raila Odinga to be having a landslide win. What happened? He lost. In 2017, up to the last poll, they were always placing Raila Odinga to be having a comfortable lead over Uhuru Kenyatta. The contrary happened. Even in this particular situation of 2022, they have been declaring Raila Odinga to be leading. In fact, I have seen the propaganda machines that they have been spewing. I don't want to call them opinion polls because they are propaganda machines. They have been spewing, has been put up by Azimio as a billboard along Thika Road. So the intent of these opinion polls.
How do you know it's Azimio? Just because it favors Azimio, it doesn't mean that they are the ones who put it up.
The intent of these opinion polls, it is not necessarily to show the support various candidates have, but it is just to shape the public opinion. But I can tell you, Eric, Kenyans know what they want in these elections. Kenyans know the difference between the Azimio project that is presenting the constitutional change and the Kenya Kwanza plan that is presenting the economic change. And let me tell you, things have changed in this country. We have been telling Kenyans that, and we have been telling our opponents, the dynamics of 2022 is that Kenyans don't want a project. We are going to find a 202 repeat, where the government of the day had their candidate and the people had their candidate. In this scenario of 2022, 20 years down the line, the government has its own candidate, which is Raila Odinga. The people have their candidate, in this case, William Samoei Ruto. And let me tell you some of the things that have changed over time. In 2017, Eric, and that's why I'm telling you, mathematically, Raila Odinga has more chance.
Hold that thought there, because I'm getting communication that we might have reconnected with Barrack Muluka. You'll pick it up from there. Barrack, if you can hear me, kindly, sir, good evening.
Eric.
Well, there you are. Thank you. Barrack, and I hope we won't lose that connection this time around. I'm in studio with Maina Karobia, who is a UDA leader. He's one of the panelists in this show tonight, and I want to engage you a bit before he picks up from where he's just left. The opinion pollsters released their last findings yesterday, sir, and I want to hear your views about that. Kenyans have been bombarded with all sorts of opinion polls online, and even some leaflets being circulated elsewhere in some places in this country purporting to be from opinion pollsters. I want to hear your views about their work this time round and how they've performed.
Thank you very much, Eric, once again, and Karobia. Now, opinion polls, by and large, are supposed to be believable. They're supposed to be conducted scientifically. And the pollsters are supposed to provide the methodology so that other people attempting to do the same kind of survey will come up with the same findings.
Okay.
We have seen that has happened before in 2013, 2017. There's no unanimity on the findings of these polls. And I think our pollsters in Kenya are doing themselves a lot of disservice. In the future, people are not going to take them seriously or to believe them.
Okay.
Because when you look at even what happened in 2013 and 2017, you will see that pollsters like Ipsos Innovate and Infotrack, they placed Raila Odinga way ahead of Uhuru Kenyatta. In 2013, when both of them were candidates seeking to be elected for the first time, one of the polls, in fact, placed Raila Odinga at 54% and Uhuru Kenyatta at 39%. And they consistently showed Raila Odinga as winning. On one occasion, Infotrack even said that if Raila Odinga were to pick any of the three politicians, Musalia Mudavadi, William Ruto, or Kalonzo Musyoka, he would win, no matter who Uhuru Kenyatta picked.
Yes.
And say, in the end, Uhuru Kenyatta went with William Ruto, and Raila Odinga went with Kalonzo Musyoka, and they were beaten. So these polls here are not believable. They are not worth anything beyond maybe generation of some excitement. And sometimes our pollsters lend credence to the thinking that he who pays the piper calls the tune. I would dismiss them outright, in fact, and wait for Tuesday next week for Kenyans to go to their polls, and they will determine whether it's Raila Odinga or William Ruto. And I say this with the knowledge, of course, that some pollsters have supported, and the word supported is used deliberately, have supported one side, and other pollsters have supported another side. So the pollsters are part of the competition, and therefore they should not be taken seriously.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Barrack. Barrack Muluka pretty much saying what you were saying, but kindly continue.
You see, the reason as to why I say mathematically Raila Odinga has no chance in the presidential race in 2022 is because William Ruto has maintained the strongholds of 2017, that is Mount Kenya, and also Rift Valley, to a great extent. And he has made inroads in former NASA strongholds, Ukambani, Coast, and Western. And he is doing, if not 50%, he is doing 60% in some of these regions. So that tells you that if he is gaining and he has maintained the strongholds that they had in 2017, that means mathematically the presidential race is done and dusted in favor of William Ruto as far as 2022 election is concerned. And this is why we are saying that Kenyans should not depend on doctored opinion polls. If you ask them, last time I saw, in fact this week, I saw a certain media house actually going to the ground and asking people in Kisumu whether they have ever been contacted by these opinion polls in terms of getting to know the numbers of support. And people are denying outrightly that they have never been contacted by these opinion polls. In fact, there was somebody who says that he has been participating in elections since 1969, and he has never been called or participated in these opinion polls. So this is what I would say, Eric. The real opinion polls, the real numbers are mattering, or they are going to count on August 9th.
Okay.
Kenyans should not be wavered. Kenyans should not be whipped by all manner of propagandas in terms of numbers to elect a certain side. They should read the manifestos. They should look at the track record of the leaders, various leaders that are presenting their candidature. Not at the presidential level only, but right from the MCA level up to the president level. And they ask themselves, if they want their lives to be changed, who can they trust in terms of changing their lives? Who among the presidential candidates, who among the MCAs has a story that is identical or that is similar to their story? Because in this election, it is about the story. It's about the economic change that we want in our country.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Barrack, I want to take you back to you. The High Court today ordered the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to use a manual register as a backup to that digital one should it fail in the August polls. But just a few hours ago, the Azimio presidential candidate, Raila Odinga's chief legal advisor, that is Paul Mwangi, has also made another set of demands, one of them including that they want to access what is known as the application programming interface. And what this basically means is that they'll have access to the electronic results transmission in real time. From where you sit, why do you think that the Azimio side is probably making these demands?
I'm not very conversant with the technology and with the technological issues. And usually I would want to leave such things to the institutions that are involved with the elections, the month of the elections.
Okay.
But what we see happening, Eric, is that we are generating a lot of suspicion and a lot of tension in the country. Everyone believing that everyone else is just about to steal the election from them and getting on tenterhooks. Everyone else believing that there are schemes, there are some kinds of conspiracies to manipulate the election, and that's not very good. Within this context also, you could sense some levels of panic by people who seem to be almost sensing defeat. And I don't know who should accuse who of sniffing defeat. I saw that in Kisumu today, the Azimio accusing Kenya Kwanza of sensing defeat. But last week and the week before, Kenya Kwanza were also accusing Azimio of sensing defeat. That was when they were talking about things like the register again with the now, when they were talking about some ballot papers being schemed to find their way into the country through Uganda, and boxes being stuffed. Some people screaming that Chairman Chebukati should resign. And all this, therefore, starts speaking to a very fragile electoral system, which one would want to encourage the leaders to attempt to demonstrate some faith in the Electoral Commission and to allow it to do its job. If you ask for that technology in some very scientific and technical things, we are likely to think that you want to interfere with the results. Why are you looking for the interface? Interface, even if I may not be an expert in technological things, is the bridging between one end and the other. And why do you want to be given access to that interface? Maybe you want to put in some figures of your own. Nobody knows. So IBC should be given the opportunity to do its work without being interfered with.
Well, thank you. From where you sit, Maina, do you have a set of demands for the IBC? Because your party leader, that is Deputy President William Ruto, has written a letter to the IBC. There are some things that he wants clarified before Kenyans go to the polls. And I'm sure this is a powerful man who has intelligence briefs. What is it that your boss could have probably noticed that now he's also making his set of demands to the polls body?
First of all, let me say this, Eric. There's nothing new that was made today in terms of ruling by Justice Esther Mugure. I think media, and to a great extent people from Azimio, misinterpreted the order that was given today. The order that was given today was actually the true position of IBC from the onstart, that we are still going through the digital system way, but we will be using the manual register as a complementary to the digital approach that already IBC had actually communicated earlier. So what the High Court made, the ruling that was made by the High Court today was actually upholding the decision or the position statement that was issued earlier by IBC. But for propaganda's sake, Azimio had to spin it to mean something that is contrary. They should be ready for a digital approach in this election.
I'll just cut you short there for your information. We did not, as a professional journalist, by the way, I get my media briefs directly from the judiciary, and I went through that, and I know what that means. I know what the orders meant, and so I'd say you'll be casting aspersions when you say the media, and to a greater extent the people from Azimio spinning it. But well, yes, the issue was about Ruto's letter to the IEBC, and my question was about what probably he might have sensed, that now just 4 days to the polls, he saw it fit to write to the IBC to have some clarifications made.
You see, Erica, the IBC is the main stakeholder in this election. The IBC is the referee in this election. It is always good to have constant communication with the IBC to also argue your case as a participant or as a player within the whole process. So William Ruto, as the presidential candidate in this election, is right when he communicates regularly with the IBC, so that they are able to read also from his script, as much as the IBC are having their own position, and as much as the opponents on the other side are having their own position in regards to the whole process. When you have a certain information, or when you have intelligence in regards to the whole process, it's always good to communicate, other than just having the process continue and then you start complaining after the election. And that's why you saw today the Kenya Kwanza Alliance communicate publicly and strongly in regards to the use of the provincial administration and use of coercion in the whole electoral process. It is always good to caution the public and caution every stakeholder, the public, the civil society, and in the international community, and also the referee and also the opponent in the whole matrix, so that people who are planning something that is sinister or something that is evil towards the process, they can be aware that Kenyans are aware. Even the stakeholders are also fully informed in regards to the games that are happening. Because let me tell you, Eric, in a competitive process, even in our ordinary things or our ordinary affairs, people try to look at every loophole or take advantage of the whole process. And that's why you'll find there are so many communications that will be taking place. As you have rightfully said, as you have written to IBC, in regards to them accessing real-time transmission of the results. This communication is healthy from my own understanding, so that people are able to know or are able to have a constant communication with them, with the IBC. It is in the right direction in regards to upholding our democracy. The only thing I would say is that IBC should continue holding its integrity, should continue fulfilling its mandate of delivering a transparent, credible, and fair election. They should know that they are not answerable to any candidate. They are only answerable to the solemn mandate they have from the people. Because IBC, they are in place to deliver justice to Kenyans.
Okay.
Not to any candidate, but to Kenyans. Kenyans need to know that once I cast my vote in my polling station in St. Patrick Primary School, Thika constituency, Kiambu County, that vote is going to tally at the National Tallying Center of IBC. That's what Kenyans want.
Okay.
The justice of their vote.
Well, Barrack, you're a strategic communications advisor. Let's talk about the messaging part of these campaigns from both sides, and that includes the messaging in political rallies as well as the paid adverts from both sides. If either sides, the leading sides rather, if either sides hired you and asked you, do you think the way they are messaging the masses will suppress the voter turnout or will make people even more excited to go out? What would your answer be?
It has been quite good so far until just a few weeks ago. I think some of the barbs that they were throwing at one another are part of the regular campaign kind of language and messaging, where you are with moderation triumphalist, you are telling your people that we are going to win this thing, register in big numbers, and afterwards they are saying now turn out in big numbers. They were also talking about what they thought they were going to do for the country, in a way issuing some promissory agenda and some promissory notes. That I think was good. Then it's begun degenerating into insolence. We have seen doctored messages, even things which you have witnessed previously live online. You come across them again having been doctored and now saying something completely different, and the messaging starts becoming frightful. Kenyans have been beaten before, and they say once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
They have been victims of election-related violence repeatedly, and therefore they will tend to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
Eric, I've seen that you are protective of the media. I'm not. I am a journalist in this country. And,
that's where I get my bread and butter, sir.
So do I. Yes, so do I, Eric. And I've made my bread and butter there for a longer time than you.
Yeah, you're my senior.
Possibly before you even happened. I was already doing my bread and butter. The reason I still do my bread and butter as a journalist is that I try to be very honest.
Okay.
We are getting it wrong. I have seen interviews on TV. I have not seen anyone attempt to interpret the advisory by the American embassy to its citizens not to visit some parts of the country.
I was coming to
think
that. I was actually coming to that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that is worrying, and I'm not necessarily talking about this interview. I have watched other interviews since that time. I watched Dr. Karanja Kibicho on some channel, I'll not say which one, and I could see the thrust of the stories, the slant. I understand slanting in news and information coverage and transmission. I tell my students to be careful not to slant issues. That was skipped completely. You can see certain frameworks being imposed that in fact people who may be the victims of these machinations are presented as villains. Now this thing of leaflets is a bad thing, regardless of who the author should be. Been surprised that Dr. Kibicho does not seem to have an idea about it. He does not seem to have an idea about what meetings have been held where. And he's the chief executive officer within the docket of internal security. So these are worrying things. The sparks between the president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, is part of this competition. He's retiring, but he has a dog in the fight, and therefore he's an interested party. His messaging is just as important as is the messaging of the deputy president. How I wish those could just address the issues without raising the temperatures. And particularly for His Excellency, the President, his biggest task right now should be to ensure that he hands over a stable country to whoever is going to succeed him, whether it's the Deputy President or it's the former Prime Minister. He should be looking forward to handing over a stable country. He has expressed his views about whom he supports. He doesn't have to rub it in with some of the things that he has been saying. And at my age, Eric, I'm allowed to speak frankly to power, to His Excellency the President, and to the Deputy President, and to tell them to go easy a bit on each other. And to the to the President, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, sometimes he worries me when I see him before the microphones and television cameras, and I wonder who his communications advisors are, and whether they think that sometimes when he comes to appear before the cameras, that it is the appropriate moment. I will not elaborate.
But so what was the interpretation about that U.S. Embassy advisory opinion?
It's a difficult one to interpret, but if I may just take a shot in the dark, I could say that they have probably done intelligence, and they have probably concluded that either Azimio will win the election, and after they have won the election, the celebrations could go out of hand and the people could be hurt, or they have found out that Azimio will lose the election, and after they lose the election, there could be violence. It could be either way, you know. Violence can be a factor of how you celebrate your victory. It could also be a factor of how you cry after being defeated. And so I don't want to say that they have seen that they will lose or that they will win. It falls somewhere between those two stools. Instead of the people in government making too much noise, because sometimes they tend to make too much noise, And they are all younger than I am, Eric, so I can talk to them as an elder brother. I can advise my president as his elder brother, and Mr. Kibicho. I can also talk to as my younger brother and tell them that sometimes instead of all this noise that you make around and propaganda and so on, please address the issues that concern the country and our children, whom we have sent home in a manner that suggests that we are preparing for war and we want to remove the children from the site. You know, traditionally, when there was going to be war, you warned the other side and they removed the children, the invalids, and women from the way so that men would face each other on the battleground, and it does start looking as if even the schools are supposed not just to be grounds for the polling, but battlegrounds. My elder brother, Professor Magoha, what is he up to? What does he know that we don't know that we should know? Karobia mentioned something important about the leaflets and about the messaging that needs to be expounded. When His Excellency the President is reported to have told people in a caucus that you vote early and then go away and leave the rest to me.
Reportedly.
What
sir.
should
Reportedly is
that
the word,
mean?
right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, reportedly, because we picked it up from the media, Eric, that His Excellency the President had a meeting with the people from the Rift Valley, and he told them that they need to change their leadership and the course, and he told them to advise the people to turn out and vote very early and to leave the rest to us. What does that mean? How should we interpret that?
Well, thank you very much, Barrack. Back to you, Karobia, but I will not give you the satisfaction of asking you to interpret the U.S. Embassy advisory opinion. I know your answer even before I asked it. But I'll ask you something that is quite controversial. When the Interior PS, that is Karanja Kibicho, once quoted an internal poll done by the National Intelligence Service, the United Democratic Alliance, and the Kenya Kwanza Alliance at large bashed him in all their meetings. They used all the time that they could get to bash him, saying that such internal polls cannot be released to the public. But interestingly, your leaders just this week have been quoting the same intelligence service, saying that they show Deputy President William Ruto winning this with 54%. I want to hear your views on that.
You see, Eric, you said earlier when we were discussing the IBC matters, you said that William Ruto is the Deputy President of this country. He has a broader access to the intelligence of this country. Okay. So the reason as to why you would find Kenya Kwanza disputing and dismissing the alleged opinion polls that Kibicho was trying to share was because they were not factual, they were not scientific, they were baseless. He was, in any case, trying to serve the public relations of Azimio Wing. I must say this, Eric. Today's Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Affairs has been let down. It has let down the public trust. It has let down the expectations of Kenyans, because we have a ministry that is.
Okay, why are you quoting the same polls that, as we wrap this up, yes, kindly, why are you quoting the same polls that you once discredited?
You see,
in 2 minutes or less, yes.
The reason as to why we were discrediting whatever Kibicho was saying or was trying to say in public or in these interviews is because they were not factual. They were not the real numbers that NIS had. NIS polls have been very consistent that William Ruto is having a comfortable lead at in the presidential race. And we had to dispute them and we had to dismiss the polls because, scientifically speaking, there is no presidential candidate who has ever had 65% in this country in terms of leading in this country. So what I must say is this, Eric.
In 30 seconds, because I want to engage Barrack as we finish. Yes?
The Ministry of Interior, we are asking, and we are calling upon the President, like my Barrack has said, and my senior has said, the President needs to be a voice of reason in this election. He must ask himself, once William Ruto wins these elections, will he have the moral authority to come and attend the swearing in? How will be his, has the President of this country been asking himself, what kind of life will he be leading if once Kenya Kwanza wins this election? Because he should be a president or a former president who is being consulted even by the government that will come in place. But under the current circumstances, the manner in which the president is behaving, I don't think any person would consult him on any
Karobia.
forward-looking government agenda.
Thank you, Karobia. And the word is if, not once. Barrack, kindly, in a minute or less, because I want us to wrap this up, don't you think it's quite dangerous for both the Kenya Kwanza side and the Azimio side to drag an institution, a very sensitive institution mandated with taking care of security issues and ensuring that our national security is top-notch, dragging it to politics? And I'm talking about the National Intelligence Service.
It depends on how the institution has conducted itself. Because if the institution allows itself to play politics, then politicians will play politics with it. And when you talk about the National Intelligence Service, you must look at Karanja Kibicho, who, as I've said, is the chief executive when it comes to matters internal security. He has been gloating around about statistics from NSIS. It's actually the height of irresponsibility for the permanent principal secretary in the Ministry of Interior to go around disclosing those kinds of figures, whether they are correct or they are spurious, as Karobia wants to believe that they are spurious. It doesn't matter one way or the other. He has no business coming to public space and flaunting those figures and trying to taunt some people with those figures and to elevate and praise others with those figures and saying that these ones are going to lose and they should shut up because they are already going to lose. He is stoking the fires, and I do not understand how in a country like this one we could have people who are very well learned but who do not know how to guard their mouths. And it's very unfortunate that Dr. Karanja Kibicho and Open NSIS are watching and they're listening. They can hear what I'm saying, that they'll go back to Dr. Karanja Kibicho and tell him that Barrack Muluka has said that if this country should burn, you will take a very major portion of the blame for that burning, and that he hopes, Barrack Muluka, that if these matters should ever end up once again before the ICC, that the first person on that list is going to be Karanja Kibicho, because he's the one who is dragging the security agencies into politics and taking very controversial and very incendiary positions.
Well, thank you very much, Barrack Muluka, Strategic Communications Advisor. Asante sana for joining us for this episode of Gameplan 2022. Thank you to Maina Karobia, UDA Youth Leader, for joining us in studio. Asante sana. It is 12 minutes past the hour, 12 minutes past 11.